This is Mark Mulcaster from Fan for Tracks, and you are listening to the Rebel Base Card Podcast. She may not look like much, but she's got it where it counts.
If they don't go for this, we're gonna have to get out of here pretty quick, Chewie.
Everything's gonna be all right, kid.
You found the Rebel Base Card Podcast.
She may not look like much, but she's got it where it counts, kid.
I'm your host, Greg McLaughlin.
Have I made a few bad decisions? Sure.
We talk about cards, collecting Star Wars, and to people in the Star Wars community.
Don't worry, we're gonna meet up with some friends of mine.
Look for special episodes called The Breakfast Pack, talking about your favorite Star Wars shows.
We will never have a better chance than this.
All right, let's get started.
Well, perhaps it is time to begin again.
Welcome back, or if this is your first episode, welcome aboard. My name is Greg McLaughlin, and this is the Rebel Base Card Podcast. And I am speaking to you from actually the Hilton across from the Olympia Exposition Centre as we just wrapped up day one of London Film and Comic-Con. I am here with Daz Davies. We're kind of wrapping up, just kind of decompressing the events of today. We're both here for the better part of the two-day event, but I wanted to record this in addition to doing interviews, which you are going to hear as well, either the show that precedes this or it's going to come after, depending upon which show was easier to edit. But I thought it'd be a good idea before we go out and grab a pint and dinner. So this might be a shorter show because it's going to be like, yeah, okay, I'm tired, hungry, and thirsty. But first, getting to hear Daz, one, I would just say it was awesome to finally get to meet you in person, but I would say that the getting in was probably the hardest.
It was a bit of a testing morning today. I made an early start from Wales, got my train, everything was going well. Then we experienced a delay, issues with the train. It was all very vague, but I was watching the minutes tick away because I had the hard deadline of a photo op Andor with Faye Marseille and Verada Seifu. I knew it was going to be tight, and then once the train stopped, I was sweating. But we made it into Euston, I think possibly maybe like something like 20 minutes later than we were supposed to, but honestly I think that I may have cut this one a little bit too tight, so I hopped on the tube. Adventures on the London Underground, fantastic. Some interesting people down there. And then I thought I'd made it, but only to find a big old queue outside of the London Olympia, unfortunately. So I followed one queue down one line, thought I was there, turned the corner, and there was just another queue to welcome me. So I did make it in eventually, but after a little bit of bouncing around the main hall, I eventually made it to photo room B, and unfortunately just slightly too late for my duo. But on the bright side, Faye Marseille was still there, and I managed to catch a photo of her. Fantastic. And she was lovely. A wonderful Northern English accent that made me feel very at home with some of my friends from that area. And I've got the photo with her, which I'm really pleased with.
It was an adventure, and the funny part is that, like most conventions, the cell phone service, once you get inside, because you have there's just a dearth of people, but here you have a very, the Olympia Exposition Centre is a little older, and it's got some really hard, areas, and the cell service, granted, I'm even using it, AT&T, which I'm over here in the UK, so I knew it wasn't going to be great, but I would say I don't think anyone really had great service. But I was sitting there and I was I'm going on record saying I kept giving him bad information, but by the time I figured out that it was not photo A, it was photo B, that was when the messages stopped going through, and I was like desperately like, Daz, it's not, and it was like I kept getting message failed. But yeah, I think what you're saying also is that, like any, it's a smaller convention, but any more of these conventions are getting well attended, and so there are lines to get into the lines, as Greg Cass always like to say. But yeah, even I, who showed up at, I think I got here a little after 8, because I knew that they were going to open the doors at 9, but people were going to start queuing. It was back and then down this one street. The only nice thing was that it's been hot across the U.S. lately. So this morning was 60 degrees, and it was really nice. And it was just sort of like waiting to get in. But once you got in, then you really saw lines to get, there were autograph vouchers and photo vouchers you could buy. So you go up to the sales desk. So there was a line if I would have turned right away once I got in to get these ones, because the autographs were cash only or vouchers. And so one of the big differences I saw right away was typically in U.S. conventions, and you've probably seen this going to Celebration, is that a lot of places, well, the prices are high and they usually have like a card machine or something. I could see how that would be a miserable failure today. So having people get, the vouchers, which they weren't necessarily for a specific person. You get it looked like little gift cards of 20, 10, 5, depending upon who you were getting. And so I ended up getting 2 $25 vouchers, which did well because I kind of had looked ahead. And I say $25, 25 pound. Whew. I wish they weren't. It's not dollar to the pound is a little high, but that was where I figured my budget where it was. And then also I did manage to get a autograph or a photo session with Garrick Hogan, who played Biggs in A New Hope. Oddly enough, his photo was 15 pounds and his auto was $30, 30 pounds. I'm like, well, I'm getting a photo with you tomorrow. But yeah, each area had its own line, and then it didn't take very long, Daz. You kind of caught it just as I think we were probably getting close to peak capacity, because you were still seeing lines waiting to get in, whereas later when we broke for lunch, it was a little easier to get back in. But I would say, we did a little FaceTime last year. I am kind of curious, comparing the two crowds, what was different this year about last year?
Oh, it's been like night and day. It felt like a completely different con today. Last year, like you say, we were FaceTiming a show with me able to walk around the floor, choose where I was going. It was nice and easy. I wouldn't say it was quiet, but it was easy enough to talk, and you could wander here, there, and everywhere. You could see just about anything without having to worry about a queue. Today, I was in complete shock when we went in. I mean, it's probably a testament to how good it was last year, but it seems to have really ramped up a few gears this year. It was surprisingly busy coming in, and I'm talking up there with the busier sort of areas of a convention I've been to at Star Wars Celebration. This was really up there. There was no room to move when I got inside, but I don't know. I can't really complain with my missed op today, because to be fair, I've come a long way, and just it's the way it falls sometimes that the op was at a certain time and it was a little bit earlier than I would have hoped for. But it was a bit of a struggle to find anybody to talk to, and I think that it's maybe a sign that the convention is just sort of finding its feet, and hopefully they'll take a little bit of feedback, and I think that there might be something that they can improve a little bit on. But I was really it threw me off a bit in the fact that they've really flipped the layout of the floor versus what I would call the balcony going around the entire hall. Last year when I was here, they had the autograph section upstairs, so you could wander in this sort of circular route right around the hall, sort of perusing the opportunities that you could take for autographs, whilst on the main floor we had all of the stalls, and for me that worked really well, and it was something I really enjoyed about last year. So when I walked in today, and it just really threw me for a loop. But it seems that they've done well. They've got big numbers in. It's tough, isn't it? Because you want these things to do well, but then we can sometimes be a bit greedy and feel like it's a little bit too busy, or I can anyway.
Well, and I got very similar vibes to Fan Expo Chicago last year, which it's first year after taking over Wizard World was a good show. It was at Donald E. Stevens Convention Center in Rosemont. It had part of that section, and it felt like, even though the stalls and the vendor halls were a little closer together, it didn't feel that crowded. And one of the things I liked about it, which is what I kind of saw here and I saw at Huntington when I was down with the Mulders, is that, the signers are within feet. Like, today we kept joking, like, I keep walking past Danny Glover, I'm like, this is unreal. And the lady who's kind of helping out is kind of looking at me funny. I'm going, it's not, it's crazy. And then on the other side, they had the signers in the middle of this pit. So Olympia, the way it had this is basically a circle. So you had the bottom area that now had all the major vendors, and then you had all the autograph signers, and then the Rebel Legion, Mark Mulcaster's group, they were kind of in a corner, and they only got a couple of places to kind of set up they had a couple of dioramas that they could do so people could go back there and change and then kind of relax a little bit. So it was very cramped. And on that second tier, they had a lot of artist alley. They had a lot more of your indie creators, which was cool. A lot of indie comic creators, and then they had a couple of little show floors, because I know that Mark Newbold from Fanfatrax, who was interviewing Gerald Prescott, they had a little stage set up, and what was kind of nice was that if you're on the floor, you couldn't hear them, but upstairs you could hear it. And so, because I think that there was an earlier one I caught that Alex Fern, and then the other fella from Andor, Nick Blood. That's right. So the one panel I saw had Nick Blood, and then Alex Fern's in it, and then the next one had that Gerald Prescott at. That was nice because it was literally nice to kind of, you get off your feet for a minute. You had to do the stairs. There was like one set of stairs going up. And then you go over. So to see those panels were very nice, and I thought they were decently attended. Sometimes you look at the people, and half of them were kind of paying attention, half of them were just happy to sit down, and some who were really intent on there. But the top floor was a little nice to kind of escape from. Bottom got a little crushed, although when it started to thin out, I'd say, because we left, let's just say around 5 o'clock. There's still a couple hours left. Now would be the time to, if you're going to, get your autographs in. I thought during its peak time, I felt, even though the autograph area was very crushed, it still seemed like the celebrities and the guests who were signing there were still in pretty good spirits. So much so that when I got one during semi-peak and one towards the end, I'll talk about it in a minute, but it didn't seem like anyone was really not having a great day, although we noticed that there were some people there, some people who pulled out, and some signers who didn't show, or maybe they're showing tomorrow. But, going from the single day like you are, Daz, or you did, to 2 days, did that take a little bit of pressure off? Like, even though, like, with the missed opportunity today, which is still going to sting, how does that kind of frame you for tomorrow, knowing that you still have some time now? Or did you kind of oh, okay, well, since I didn't get this, but now I have tomorrow, did that kind of change some of your plans and how you're going to attack tomorrow?
Yeah, I there was definitely a sense of relief knowing that I've got an extra day tucked in my belt for tomorrow. I think that if I'd been going home tonight, I think that it would have been a pretty tough day to have got everything I want to achieve over the weekend. I really don't have massive plans. Like, I have a couple of photo ops. There was today's, and tomorrow I've got another photo op booked with the Mando guys, Brendan Wayne and Lateef Crowder. So I'm excited for that. Again, that's tying me down to a time, but otherwise I've no real big plans, but there's a couple of autos I really fancy getting. There's Anna Brewster, sort of a smallish part in The Force Awakens, but being my favourite movie, I'd love to get that auto and maybe have a quick chat with her. Maybe get a little nugget about The Force Awakens, and also I'd really like to meet Ming Chu, who is a stunt performer. She is the Jedi in the temple, in the Padawan scene in Kenobi, but also she's done a lot of the stunt fight choreography for Ahsoka. So I think she sounds super interesting. I'd again really like to meet her. And I saw them today, and it was nice to be able to say, do you know what, I'm not going to do that today. It's not been the easiest day, And like, I don't feel like I'm, tip top on the top of my game. So it was nice to be able to sort of take a step back and go, do you know what? I'm going to meet them tomorrow. That's fine. I think I'll be a little bit fresher tomorrow, perhaps get a bit more out of the experience, because you never know when you're going to get a chance to meet these people. So having that little bit of flexibility was very nice today. I was like, oh, okay, because it is a big deal meeting these people, and you do, there's an initial sense of anxiety you get initially, but generally you end up they tend to put you at ease and help you relax, and they're just glad that people are there and want to see them. But hopefully they'll get a better version of Daz Davies tomorrow, or at least that's the plan. It depends on these beers you're talking about, right?
I tell you, yeah. The thing that I was hoping to come for, and as I was pitching this idea to the family and coworkers, I started to connect with more folks, in the UK and beyond, and they started, once I started kind of counting up, like, there are a number of people here, and so I know when I come here, it's like, I'm gonna probably I'm gonna shove a microphone in somebody's face regardless if I really know them well. That's just the trick of the trade there, but. I'm like, okay, I think there's enough people that it would make it fun, and starting with yourself, like I said, everybody from Fantatrax, I had kind of connected a little more with the artist Jamie Richards, who does some tops work, as well as Nick Gribben, who also does some tops work as well. And so I said, you know what, let me try. And what was amazing about it is that, as I am giving you bad information to get to your photo op that you didn't get to, I run into Jamie Richards almost by accident. He actually caught me. And it's one of the reasons why I wear the shirt, and actually happy that there wasn't lanyards, because usually when I wear lanyards, it covers up the shirt that I'm wearing that has my stuff on it. Because even though I may not, I'm tunnel vision, I may not see you, someone will catch me. But Jamie Richards caught me, and we had a great chat, but I just noticed, like, he would, someone would come by and say, oh, hi, and to Jamie. And so as we were talking, and hearing some of the interviews that I'll be doing in kind of the next show, it's like, it has this gravity that connects people, and they may only see each other online, or they may only see each other at cons, but everybody can kind of connect, even if it's just for a short bit. But, I got to, first meet Mark Mulcaster from Fantatrax, and marvel at the fact that this guy is jacked. The arms are man. I'm like, you don't have to do this. You could just go live your life. You've already won. Most conventioners are like you and me, are like, well, I would say, there's a husky rebel out there in every one of us, Star Wars fans. It's like, you know what, anyway. But he was wonderful, and then, like, I knew, like, all right, he's saying, Mark Newbolt's coming. And what's funny is that as I'm kind of finishing up with Jamie, I'm like, all right, I haven't heard from Daz in a while, and I'm also in a dead space over there, and I go over and I see Mark Newbold. Like, you can't miss him. The man is very nice, very tall. But he comes in, and, like, you're kind of next to him, like, Mark is talking, like, Jamie, I think Mark, and I was like, oh my gosh, I got to go find Daz. I told him, and all of a sudden Daz is like, I'm right here, dude. And so I was just sort of like, it's just, but you forget, like, last year you had a chance to meet Mark Newbold and had a great chat, and then it's sort of this year you come around, oh, hey, you get to see each other again. And so not only with, and I got to watch, Mark do his panel, and then we followed around Mark and Marcus. They were doing their Walk and Talk podcast. One, because it was kind of cool, because Mark Mulcaster was dressed as a rebel pilot, and you got Mark Newbold, who's just very tall. But we also found that they created a nice space we could walk behind and not get crushed by the crowd. And so we followed around for a little bit, and I think. But yeah, we kept running into people all day, and I think there was even a person that you recognize that you went to school with?
Yeah, back from college days, so about 20 years ago. It's incredible. It's been one of those days where we just kept, bumping into people from, various connections. I think that's another part of the 2-day thing. When you do see people, I think that you're more likely to sort of stop and chat and relax together without that pressure of, it's great to see you, but I really need to go to the next thing. There was none of that today, and I was quite glad to see Mark Newbold talking with you. He was like a beacon. He was like Gandalf the White. He was glorious and standing out, and I was like, I know who that is. And then lo and behold, who's he speaking to? But you, Greg. So it's been a lot of fun today, just chatting with people and just, hearing about their day and what they're doing, and having a good laugh along the way as well. There's been plenty of laughing today, which I've enjoyed.
And I think we also talked about how those are cumulative and they building blocks. We always talk about, like, for me, almost like a fixed point in time is Dan Zare from Coffee with Kenobi, when he did his mythology panel at Celebration Chicago, and he ended up having to do it by himself. But I kept marveling, like, later on, I got to know just about everybody that was in that room, when you're going, like, I can't believe they were there. The Mulders were there. Tom was there. Ross was there. But then you today it was funny because later on, right? So we ran into Jamie a number of times because the place is a lap. You're just doing laps, and so Jamie is over talking to, is it Robert Timothy Smith?
Yes,
the actor for Neil. So he talked like the Star Wars Sessions guys. I think I even got a DM from somebody today. It's like, hey, we saw you're there. We're not there, and so he was talking to the actor, and he actually got him to do a promo for with Robert Timothy Smith. And but he was talking with the dad as well, and we're just kind of having a chat. We'd found Daz found a great beer vendor, and so we're just kind of chatting there, and it started to calm down. And he's looking over, and he's like, "Yeah, his dad's there," and of course he manages things like. And we got to talk, and I kind of looked over, and his dad wasn't really talking to anybody. I'm like, I'm gonna go talk to Neil's dad. So I went over, and I just wanted to say, hey, as a parent, congratulations, because now you get to be involved in all this kind of stuff. And then I went back and I'm like, I'm getting a selfie with Neil's dad, and I got a selfie with Neil's dad, and that's going on in my Instagram channel. But these are the kind of things that in a show where when the pressure comes down, right? Like you said, if it had been a one-day thing, like I'm typically can be one-day thing, you're going from dawn till dusk, and so anything's a whole. Here it's sort of like the cue is going to be the cue. It's going to be what it is. Things are going to get missed, but you just don't know. But if you go along with the flow, you're going to have a great day. And so that was just a moment. And as I was talking to Jamie and you about, when we're on a podcast, the time is what it is, but it's the outside times that are the best. But give me some other impressions. Like, what did you think of the, like we were walking through the vendor halls and some of that. What were some of the things that kind of caught your eye, besides all the swords and guns? But what was kind of something that you had to kind of stop and pause?
So many swords and guns. It was we're like, well, what do you do with these? They put it above your mantelpiece. I'm not sure. Saying that, I suppose it's we have our light swords, but I think that seems more sensible to me. There seemed to be a good mix of stalls today that we walked past, but that my favourite stall of the day was what's the guy's name that I bought those free prints from?
Oh, Nick Gribben.
Nick Gribben, yeah. His store was absolutely fantastic. I was loving looking through his artwork. He had a good deal on sort of a small sort of 6x4 size prints. What did I pick up? Oh, an Ahsoka, a Mando, and a Grogu, which I think will probably go in my little boy for him. It's super cute. I think he'll enjoy that. I really enjoyed his store, and it's nice because, again, when you're paying for these items, they'll often ask you about how your day is going, and you can strike up a little bit of conversation, like we did. And he even threw in a keyring, which was a real bonus. It was just hard just to pick one, but I've taken a Neil one with me, and that'll be good. You're coming home with me. Otherwise, there was some nice sort of what I'd call maybe like crafty stores, which is maybe not something I've ever noticed that much of before. We saw some like almost like knitted dolls, would you say? Mm-hmm. And there was an X-wing pilot, I suspect probably a Luke Skywalker. We saw some cool Ninja Turtles there that really stood out. That was fun. I enjoyed that. We managed to have a little look through, a few comics, but I wouldn't say that it was a very comic heavy Comic Con really. But there was a few boxes hanging around, and who knows if there's a bit of time to kill tomorrow, might have a little bit more of a look in there just to see what I can find. Other than that, there's a lot of your usuals that you expect to see. There was a few, of your Funko Pop and that kind of thing, and your sort of Lego minifigs, which there'll be a market for that, and the people who enjoy those things will be all over them. So yeah, I think that's. Buying those prints was the moment I put them in my bag, I was almost like, okay, mission complete. If nothing else, I've got some nice prints to enjoy at home, and with them being the smaller size, I'm gonna find it pretty easy to find a nice home for them. So I'm looking forward to seeing them amongst my collection.
I always like it when artists have a variety of things at their table and across the price points. I mean, he had some really great APs and sketch cards. I'm like, that's kind of out of my budget a bit. But having some other things, and also size. He had some print, and I was sitting there looking at some of the prints and going, okay, that might fit in my bag. But I like the variety of sizes. And that's even when I'm like, when I was doing... I did 2 autographs today, and I had them do on cards, because that went like, all right, they can go in a binder, whereas like maybe if I get a large print, I saw enough poster tubes today, and I go, oh yeah, I know. Although you didn't see it, but as I was talking to Jamie, there was a fella he knew, and he had this Andor poster, and it looked like it had more autos than there were people in Andor. But that was one of those where you're going, that is a lifelong mission. I've seen it before. I've talked to folks who have had those, and I know, Frank even I think has gotten some as well. But you're just like, that's...
Yeah, I want to say maybe Rebels Crew, he might have a few, yeah.
Oh, man. And it's great because that is a character chase, right? It may not be a card, but it is something where you have to plan out, and people go, but I like it. It's a very specific thing, and it's a unique. It's definitely a one of one.
I don't trust myself with bringing a poster from event to event. That thing's not going to survive.
It's gonna look like my Revenge of the Sith 2005, Father's Day, who's your daddy poster, which I think I had posted up, and it's beat to high heaven. Did you see any cosplay today that, as we were kind of digesting and going through all this before it leaves my brain, was there any cosplay that you found you liked today?
We saw crazy Game of Thrones cosplay, didn't we?
Yeah.
Where he had this sort of animated, was it undead? What would you say? Like a small,
undead dragon,
like
right?
a dragon, yeah. Which was, and this thing was, it was quite animated. The wings were moving on their own. It was really impressive, and not the sort of thing I was expecting to see today, really, but I thought fair dues to him, because this thing had like a few feet of wingspan, but he seemed to be getting around okay. But he was very popular with getting some pictures taken. But I've not really noticed the cosplay as much as I have in the past today. I don't know. I'll have to pay a bit more attention tomorrow. I think I saw a few troopers. I saw a scout trooper outside the convention. He looked like he was popping to maybe buy a drink or something. There's not been a lot of Star Wars cosplay, I think. There wasn't. No, I'm racking my brains now. There wasn't a lot today, I don't think.
It didn't seem like a ton, although I saw a variety. I did see some troopers, and I know that Mark Mulcaster had said they kind of had them more in the corner, but I know that they had an indoor trooper. I saw a Neil. He had on his Rebel pilot outfit, and I was trying to think. There was a really cool Greedo, and I forget who it was. I talking to you where I was like, or Jamie, where there's a guy next to me came up with a Greedo T-shirt. Like, how many times have you seen a Greedo T-shirt? Almost never. But he was on the phone, and the Greedo kind of turns and goes, and I was literally like, I was in the middle of a conversation. I leaned over. I was like, I think you should go get a selfie with Greedo. And he's like, what? Oh, I didn't see that. I'm like, so I wonder if that guy got it. But yeah, I saw a number of it because we had the one actress from The Boys. So there was a number of the Boys cosplay. There was a lot of Doctor Who.
Yes.
There was the Golden Dalek. Somebody broke out a Golden Dalek, and I'm like, good on you, because that's got to be a hot box today. But I saw a number of Tom Baker scarves, a lot of David Tennant, Matt Smith, some fezzes, and things like that. But yeah, the only thing is like everybody together, because it was very warm. I don't think the air really I think it was not enough to service that many people until the very end. But I would say everybody was probably like, like I couldn't get enough antiperspirant on at the end of the day to take that out. But it was kind of nice. But yeah, I am curious and thinking, how do you think you see a Sunday? Do you think it's going to be busier, or is it going to be less?
It's going to be interesting to see. I'm hopeful it's going to be a little bit quieter. I just don't think that we're going to have quite that peak that we had today. Even people who have come for the 2 days, I think that they'll be a bit more relaxed about when they're going in. Hopefully a little bit more staggered. I'm possibly making it sound like it was worse than it was. Like that first hour was rough, but that's only because I had a hard deadline. I think if I'd been able to take my time a bit more, it really wouldn't have been so much of an issue. I could have chosen a bit more of a sensible path. I was full Jon Snow amongst all the troops, just like sort of climbing up, trying to get some air. And I'm hopeful that tomorrow might have a little bit more of a relaxed vibe. It's hard to say because it's a two-day convention. I think if we had the 3 days with the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I think that on those occasions the Sunday is always a very different feeling day to the others. I'm hoping that we get somewhere in the middle with it tomorrow. I did enjoy the sort of bustle and the excitement today, but particularly around autos and things like that, it's nice if it's not too crazy and that you feel like you can take your time, because I didn't see anybody being rushed on today, but inevitably there's always something in the back of your head if there's a big queue behind you that you just sort of common sense tells you to move on. Whereas tomorrow I'm sure I'll be boring the life out of the people I go see, and eventually they might have to call security. We'll wait and see.
Well, that's how I felt initially. So I had my vouchers, burning a hole in my pocket, but I like you, I was kind of wanting to kind of pick my shots because I'm like, at the peak times, what's your experience? Like, what are you trying to get for the experience? And so I had known that Colin Baker, the Sixth Doctor, was there, and very reasonable at 25 pounds. And oddly enough, he was like 2 people down from Sylvester McCoy. And so for a while, I'm sitting here just staring at the both of them, I think with Garrick Hogan in the middle. So it was sort of like this, you've got the Sixth Doctor, Biggs, and the Seventh Doctor.
It sounds like a joke.
It sounds like a joke. 2 doctors and Biggs walk into a bar. But, there was a couple people ahead. It kind of had wound down a little bit. And I was actually kind of happy because, you kind of build up in your mind like, what is this experience? What do I want this experience to be? What are my expectations? And I was just like, you know what? Especially with something like, for me, growing up in the 80s and going from, I did catch a lot of the Tom Baker Doctor Who, but I saw a lot of Peter Davidson and then Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy kind of before it kind of wound down. And so I just, as Greg and I talk a lot about, like the dark times where it's like, after 1983 and before you really get to, the Phantom Menace. And a lot of that was Doctor Who from about like the early 80s, after Return of the Jedi, until you start to see like the Star Trek The Next Generation really kick in. And yeah, you get in those late 80s, early 90s. And so, even though he may not have been like some of my favorite stories, although I love the 2 Doctors, I was like, you know what? I just wanted to tell you this, that, I like what you were trying to do, and reading further and all that kind of stuff. I know that it was a hard pivot. You took a character that's been around for decades. You guys were trying to do your thing, and I don't think they gave you guys enough chance to do it. And we've seen recently, like not every Doctor gets, the full run of that. And he'd asked me, where I was from, and I was like, I told him I'm originally from Ohio. And he's like, Columbus, and I'm like, yeah, I grew up near Columbus. And so he's like, yeah, one of my first conventions, had a great time. It was like, he said it was after one of his early stories had come out, and it was just great, and we had a nice laugh. And I had a couple of these some early trading cards, I think from the 90s, that he was in, and I was like, you know what? I wasn't married. I was like, to Andy, I was like, what would you think? And he had one where he was he was with the Cybermen, and there was a couple other profile shots, and he's like, I kind of like that one. And so we talked about it for a little bit, and he was kind enough. He actually even signed another one. But as you're saying, it's like, because there wasn't a line of a bunch of people, we could have a moment. And I wasn't sitting there. I wasn't going to hang around for another 5 or 10 minutes. But it was just nice to have that moment and a bit of a laugh and things like that, and it was really nice.
I enjoyed watching you going over there because there's something really nice about seeing somebody have a good interaction with with an actor, because they can sometimes seem like they're something different to just a regular human being. Whereas with the sort of the I think your timing was very good. I think you arrived at the desk at a very good time. There was no real crowd pressing behind you. You could just see you having a nice time, and he looked very relaxed. He looked very happy to be chatting with you, and there is something enjoyable about seeing that sort of it's something that we all want when we meet some of our favorite actors, our favorite characters. Definitely I really enjoyed seeing it, and I could just tell that you were having a good time, and you came back with a big smile on your face. I was like, yeah, that looked good.
And as we were, and it's still, you see these people on TV, especially, as a kid now, how many, I'm hesitant to say how many decades were past these stories, but I know that I like him and Sylvester McCoy. I know Peter Davidson also, not only have they done a bunch of the Big Finish, they did, the audiobooks, but they've also been very supportive of like the next generation of Doctor Who. And so, to be a part of that and to even see part of that. And I know that, when they do, I know we have TARDIS Chicago, which is a big show in Chicago, and a little pricey, but I know that they usually pull in a lot of guests, and it's fun. And that's a whole other fandom. It's almost be like we'd go in there and go, what? But it was nice, and like I said, you have that connection from being a kid. The second one, and I thought I was going for, we were kind of done. And Alex Ferns, the guy who played Sergeant Mosk, hadn't been at his I hadn't seen him at his table. I know he did a panel earlier in the day, and I know he's probably been there. I just couldn't see him because they're just a crush of people. So we're getting ready to leave, and I see next to him, was it Faye?
Faye Marsa, yeah.
Yeah. So here's another one where you have a huge queue, and then he's right there, and he's pulling in a couple here and there, but there's not that many. So I'm like, all right, you know what? I have this other voucher. I have a card from him. There were not many of the Andor ones done, but one of the weekly tops cards, him and Cyril was on. I'm like, all right, I'm just going for it. And so there was a gentleman before I got up, and they were having a very animated conversation, very funny. And he was like, and all of a sudden he's like, I think he'd asked him to take a selfie. And he's like, all right, I'm going to break the rule. And Alex Ferns was like, all right, we're going to break some rules. And the ladies are going, I can't break the rules. I work here. And she's like, so they get up and they're about ready to go. And he's like, are you going to, I guess he was putting his hand down. He was like the guy was like, you're not rubbing my belly. He's like, no. He's so they both have a big laugh. And so we get back, and I kind of go up and I go, I can't follow that. And he just dies laughing. And I'm like, but I said, I actually would have preferred to see the picture of him holding your belly for no good reason, because I was just like, that would have been a lot funnier. And so that started off, that I think really broke the ice, right? Mm-hmm. And so then I just was kind of saying like, hey, look, I loved your character. I've gone on, I have it. Many podcasts me going, Sergeant Linus Mosk is one of my favorite characters. And I told him, I said, what? I like the vulnerability that put into him. I liked that very, as someone who's prior military. And he was also like, yes, I'm also prior military. And he was like, that there's that sense of duty, but just, just that little bit of vulnerability, just make it awesome. And so I said two things I wanted to know. I wanted to know about the flask. And he's like, but when I asked him, I was trying to ask him, like, where did the flask kind of come from? But he answered with me. He said, had this thing gone 5 seasons, Mosk would have joined the rebellion. And I was just like, my mind is blown. And it kind of makes sense. He said, yeah, he just kind of has enough. And he joins up. And I think you can kind of see that at the end. Yeah. After he's kind of sitting there, after the whole thing that happened. And, it's just a shot of him. It's the last shot you see. He just kind of breaks out the flask and puts it, and he's like, this is just nuts. But then I asked him, I asked him about the trading of the hats. Mm-hmm. I said, how did that come about? Did you, and he says, yeah, that was just something that me and the actor who played Cyril, whose name's escaping me at the moment, just something that kind of came up with. Thank you. Something that kind of came up with, and he was talking about, the fact that he's got his uniform all tucked down. It's just something, and they were just 2 moments, but these are the kind of things we go back to when you have that kind of time and you pick your spots. And sometimes you don't have the choice of when you get your autograph or your photo op. You're just hoping that, it's at a good time and they're in a good mood. But when you can have those and you go, you know what, he's not going to remember me tomorrow. But at the time, at the moment, we were both kind of in that moment. It seemed like it was fun.
Yeah.
And I walked away, and he actually, the best thing was he was like, he's like, yeah, I got the first curse word in Star Wars, and he's like, I'm gonna as he's autographing the card, he puts shit down on there. There I lost my there's the explicit tag on this, but I was just like, it's out of context. So I'm going, what? But then you go, But then also it's like, I did mention, I'm like, I liked you in Chernobyl as well. And of course, we talk about the hats and so, but. That takes a little bit of pressure off tomorrow because I was looking around for there was the extras who were stormtroopers who were not exactly the highest valued autograph, but I was looking for them today because I had some Star Wars cards. But hopefully we'll see them tomorrow. But I'm thinking tomorrow, now with the pressure off, like, all right, I've got my 2 autographs I want to, although I saw there's a couple more I could do, but yeah. So tomorrow, and you'll probably hear about this later on. I would say that it's going to be interesting, and having had a nice, very nice shower and a fresh set of clothes, and a little bit of pressure off, I think tomorrow's going to be interesting.
I'm kind of jealous of you having had those 2 experiences already. You've got them in the bank, whereas I've still got to do my meetings now. And the more I think about this, I'm not sure I had such a good idea, being so relaxed and just watching you having a great time. But no, he wasn't a character. He was. We'd been sort of watching his desk, and we were commenting on the fact of, like, where is he? I think he must have been having too good a time somewhere. He definitely seemed like the guy who could enjoy himself, but then he was a lot of fun, and that guy and the whole belly rubbing incident just really had me cracking up. It was good fun. I'll be honest. I've got 2 autos planned. Wonder if he'll be there tomorrow. If I could squeeze in a third, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if he's even there tomorrow. But it was again, it was fun seeing 2 very different sort of interactions that you had. The first one was very relaxed, and then the second one just was the barrel of laughs. It was good fun that.
Well, and having those 2 days where you can kind of see, because we kind of walked past a bunch of the tables, and you can kind of see the mood. Someone's it's perfectly all right. Like if they've had a bad week, or there's something, or it's a contractual obligation, or they're really tired, or they're not really feeling good, that is perfectly valid. But yeah, I would say something that, especially with a lot of tables not being overly expensive, you go, it's not a bad idea if you have the luxury of time to kind of pick and choose your spots and go, okay. And then you kind of make that mental note, like, all right, I'm going to go back and I'm going to try this. So tomorrow, like, although I don't have anything other than if my bargain stormtroopers show up, I'm down. But otherwise, I'm like, you know what, I'm fine. And even with most of the audio, I think I've got nearly everything. I might do a little bit more for the show, because what we're going to do is, I think this show will be released as a standalone, and then what I'll do is all the interviews I got today, which is some fantastic audio from everybody. And I think, like I said, once again, we have both Marks from Fantatrax, we have Jamie Richards, we have Nick Gribben, Carl Jones. Gosh, who else did I talk to? I think there was another cosplayer I talked to. But it was just really fun. And if I forgot your name, if I forgot I talked to you today, that's par for the course for me. But I would say I think that makes a nice standalone rather than having like a marathon 2-hour session. But yeah, I don't know what's happening tomorrow with me. I think I'll just be kind of enjoying your moments and hopefully seeing that. But yeah, otherwise, I think the pressure, mine to get this stuff kind of in the can is done. And then, yeah, I could only see, the only problem I could see is that, yeah, that loosens up maybe the purse strings to go, come on, you've spent enough already. But what's another 20 pounds at this point between friends? It's
a nice position to be in, and I think there is something to be said for that sort of the way it's working out. With you can wander around and you can sort of live in the moment a bit and be like, do you know what? I'm going to pluck for this auto. I can see that person's having a good time. I'm gonna jump on that. I want some of that action. So it's quite nice. Sometimes you come and these events can be a little bit too predetermined. But there's a certain looseness to the way that they're doing the autos here, which I'm really enjoying.
Yeah, and also, especially with some of the larger cons in the United States, where a lot of things have to be planned down, and taking all that into consideration, it is sometimes maybe nice to kind of take a step back and kind of go, one, to have a plan, and then what happens if that plan fails. But also, it's like, at the end of the day, it's like you're there to have fun. And I would say, and I won't speak for you, like, I had a blast today, and I would say this has been completely worth it. Tomorrow will be icing on the cake. But then again, after a night's sleep and maybe a couple cups of coffee, there'll be another mission and maybe another, I can't help myself with the microphones. But I brought the equipment. I'm using the equipment. So I'm going to run all the batteries down. We're going to try that. But so we're going to kind of wrap things up for this as we go try to find a pub and a nice bite to eat. But just lastly, Daz, I just wanted to say, and I know that everybody like on our threads was incredibly happy that everybody got to be there. And I think even if someone's not here, even if you weren't here, or if I see pictures of you or someone else at a con where other people are getting together, people that we happen to know, like over the years you just kind of interact with everybody. But I would just say, I wanted to say thanks to everybody who was very happy for these meetings to take place, to get a chance to meet you today. And we didn't even get a chance to talk about how crazy this Hilton's layout is. By the way, I'm going to pause for a second and go, Tom Gross, Teachers in the Dungeon, you need to get over here and graph paper and map these I've never seen hallways. If you've seen Severance, then this is exactly how the Hilton's layout is. But I would say if you're looking for like a new adventure, you want to try to do some dungeon crawling, maybe some vintage stuff, come over to the Hilton here next in Olympia and map just any floor, because I swear I have never seen layouts like this before. But anyway, I was just saying, as an aside, it was great. Everybody got a chance to get together today, meet new friends, continue relationships, and just to kind of expand on it. Tomorrow should be fun. Mm-hmm. There'll be a lot of stuff that's going to be posted on Instagram and Threads and Blue Sky and X as well. And then, like I said, for the podcast, for those either who I interviewed going, hey, am I on a podcast? So what's going to happen, I think this one will go out first. It's mostly done. And then the second one will be more on the interviews from which are going to be some great content there. And so we have at least two shows out of this, and some great card stuff as well, because the Tops artists I talked to today, 3 Tops artists talking to today, between Jamie Richards and Carl Jones and Nick Ribbon, were all fantastic. And I know that there are some shows that are coming up that they will be in, and I think they're trying to organize some like big card show here in London that I'm going, And seeing the Fanatic store yesterday, the flagship store, as I posted some, and I'll be posting more of those. Just really digging it. So there's a lot of reasons to come back, but we're going to sign off for now. Once again, look for the follow-up show that's going to have even more great interviews. Daz, any final thoughts?
No, it's been a great day. I've really enjoyed it. Look forward to tomorrow. Look forward to a nice evening ahead. A couple of beers and some more chat. And we'll be ready to go again tomorrow. Can't wait.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to cut it loose for today. I'm going to let Card Squadron take it out, and we'll talk to you soon.
Hi, this is Mark Newbold from Fantatrax, and you're listening to the Rebel Base Card Podcast. Great pull, kid.
I'd like to check out, refuel my ship, prepare for my immediate departure.
The Rebel Base Card Podcast focuses on cards, collecting, and the Star Wars community, and appreciates you coming along for the ride.
If you have any feedback for this episode, you can reach out to the program in a number of ways. You can leave a comment on the Instagram post for this episode. You can also DM Greg on Instagram at Rebel Base Card.
Make sure to also follow the Rebel Base Card on Twitter and Facebook at Rebel Base Card. If you want, you can send an email to greg@rebelbasecard.com.
And you can find show notes for this and all episodes on the website rebelbasecard.com. In the Star Wars Card Trader app, and just about every other one, you can find Greg at CornFedTech.
The Rebel Base Card uses the hashtag Card Squadron as a way to alert friends about cool cards and recent drops in the galaxy far, far away. It's a great way to bring our community a little bit closer together and help one another finish our sets in time. We collect, communicate, and commiserate. Well, at least when we run out of credits or crystals to spend on our digital collections. Join the fun, even if all the other cool squadron names were already taken. And remember, we collect as one, and would be honored if you join us.
And if you are a sketch card artist, or Star Wars artist or collector, cosplayer, and want to talk about your work, your craft or passion, drop Greg a line. I'm sure he'd love to hear your story. You can also help the show by leaving a comment or review on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you got this episode.
Otherwise, the mission is clear. Keep those cards out of the hands of the Empire, and the Rebel Base card will return soon.
This podcast is not affiliated in any way with Topps, Disney, or Star Wars, nor is it endorsed by Disney or Lucasfilm, and is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. All names and sounds and any other related items are properties of their respective trademarks and/or copyright holders here in the U.S. and abroad. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com.
That's it.